Hello everyone, welcome back to the U.S. Civil War. Today we're going to be doing turn 2 in the 1861 scenario. So if we look at the sequence of play, the first phase is the reinforcement phase. The Union get the following reinforcements. They get 6 SPs in the east, 3 SPs in Ohio and Indiana, 3 in Illinois, 2 in St. Louis. They get to place or upgrade 1 fort, and they draw 1 special action card because we're in 1861 and each side only draws 1 special action card. For our 6 SPs in the east, I believe we're just going to give it to Washington's defenses. So here's 6 SPs. We'll put it in Washington. Actually, we're going to put 5 in Washington and 1 in Annapolis, just in case we want to do a ocean attack on or ocean transport on Hatteras Inlet with Burnside. And then we have 3 SPs in Ohio and Illinois, or sorry, Ohio and Indiana. So I think we will just put 1 in Cincinnati and 1 in Evansville. Now we get 3 SPs in Illinois, and I think we are just going to put them in Cairo because we know eventually things are going to be happening here. So we'll just put 3 SPs in Cairo, and then 2 SPs in St. Louis under Fremont. And now we get to upgrade a fort. I shouldn't have brought you back over here, but we're going to basically upgrade Washington, D.C.'s fort. So it now is a level 2 fort, which you see the counter for here. So Washington, D.C. is now a level 2 fort. And the the Union draws a special action card, and they get the Trans-Mississippi. So now they have a naval and a Trans-Mississippi special action card. Now, the Confederate reinforcements are a little bit more complicated. So we upgrade 1 resource hex by 1 BP. Basically, we make another arsenal by rolling 2 die. So an 8 on the... We have a chart for it somewhere. On the random states table is Georgia. So we take an arsenal token counter, and we have to put it in Georgia somewhere. I think we'll just put it in Atlanta, and we add 1 to our arsenal BP on the turn track, or the status track. And now we have to go for Confederate reinforcement segment. So we determine the number of reinforcements, place 1 SP in the Trans-Mississippi, divide the remainder as evenly possible between the eastern and western theaters. Odd number of SPs go to the east. But you'll see we have a reinforcement formula. So there's 100 on-map resource points for the Confederates, -3 because the Union control Wheeling, what else do they control? Grafton and Harper's Ferry. Plus the 2 for the arsenals. They don't have any border state BPs. The block runner BPs are 5 for the North Atlantic, 7 for the South Atlantic, and 8 for the Gulf. And then -10 for maintenance. That can go up for inflation. And then we divide the total by 10. So let me do that calculation real quick, and I'll let you know how many reinforcement points the Confederates get. All right, so the Confederates get 10 reinforcement points. The first point goes out in the Trans-Mississippi. Has to go on a resource hex. So we could put it in Arkansas Post and maybe do a little riverine movement up the Mississippi. But I think instead we'll just put it in Fayetteville because Price only has 1 SP and he'd like to go on another raid into Missouri, I think. So he gets the 2nd SP there. And then the remaining 9 have to be split between the west and the east with the odd leftover SP going out into the east. And the Confederates can only place a maximum of 2 SPs in a state. So I think we'll place maybe, how many do we got here? Polk has 3. So I think we'll place 1 in Nashville, 1 in Memphis, and 2 in Corinth. So that's the west taken care of, and now we'll move to the east. Out here in the east, we have 5 SPs to place. I think we'll put 1 in New Bern to protect the North Carolina coast. Now the 2 in Virginia, I think we're going to put them up here in the valley in Strasburg. So they'll go under that fortification or entrenchment marker. And now, so that's 3. We'll put the 2nd North Carolina one in Weldon. That's 4. And then 1 more. We'll just put the last one in Columbia, South Carolina. And we can get them on the trains if we have to. Move them north. So that's the Confederate reinforcement phase complete, or segment complete. Now the Confederates also draw 1 because we're in 1861. So they draw a Trans-Mississippi card as well. And now we return displaced units and place militia. So both sides, there's no displaced units, but both sides can move about their militia however they feel like it. I think both sides are happy and content with where their militia is. So we're good on that phase. And now the strategic movement phase. So the Union go first, and they get to move 12 SPs by rail, 3 SPs by river, 3 SPs by ocean, and 1 SP per theater by road. So basically what we're going to do is McDowell only has 4 SPs in Alexandria. We're going to leave 5 SPs, I think, in Washington. Give McDowell 4, so that's 4 by train. We're going to move the SP in Harrisonburg by road to Harper's Ferry. So now there's 4 SPs under Patterson and Harper's Ferry. That's our 1 road strategic movement taken care of in the east. In the west, we're not moving anybody because we're not going into Kentucky, but I think we are going to have to do some strategic movement out here. So this 1 SP is going to take the road movement to Springfield and join Lyon out there. And then Fremont is going to send, I think, 1 SP by rail down to Ironton. And that SP is hopefully going to take back Greenville eventually. But we'll see when they get about doing that. And I think he's actually going to send another SP out west to Sedalia. And that SP is going to work on taking back these Confederate-controlled towns out on the Osage and the Missouri. So that's the Union strategic movement phase completed. Now the Confederates get strategic movement. They only get 7 strategic rail, 1 strategic movement, river movement, and 1 strategic SP per theater move in per theater. So out here in the Trans-Mississippi, I think we're okay. Nobody's going to be moving there. Now in the west, make sure you can see it. In the west, we are going to be doing quite a bit movement, I think, or at least a little bit. So this 1 SP in Memphis is going to take the train and join Polk up here in Union City. So he now has 4 SPs under his command in Union City. The 2 SPs in Corinth, I think we're going to move 1 to Polk and 1 to Nashville. So Nashville now has 3 SPs and Polk has 5. So that was 3 total train SPs in the west. So we have 9 SPs to move, or 4 SPs to move by train still in the east. So out here in the east, we're leaving this 1 SP in New Bern to protect the North Carolina coast. This 1 SP in Weldon, however, is going to go join the army up here under Johnston, so he's going to get another SP. He's going to go up to 3. And Beauregard still has 3 SPs himself. And then, so that's, we're going to, I don't know if you remember, we can't see it on the board, but down here in Columbia, South Carolina, we had an SP reinforcement. It's going to hop on the train and join Johnson as well. So he's going to have a total of 4 SPs under him and 3, was it, under Beauregard, for a total of 7 SPs. He is under the entrenchment, so even though McDowell has 8 SPs, he should be okay for now. So that's the Confederate strategic movement phase complete. Now we go to leader management phase. Starting with the Union leader management phase, we get Burnside in the east, so he'll go to Annapolis to take over this 1 SP, and he'll be coming down the coast for sure. We get McClellan gets promoted, so his counter gets flipped, and like I showed you in the last video, he gets some new stats. McDowell is relieved. McClellan goes and takes over the Army of the Potomac. Well, what will eventually be known as the Army of the Potomac. So now his 2 SPs out here in West Virginia are generalists. Well, they have an inherent general, but they don't get any special general. Out here in the west, we get Halleck, who you also will notice is also a cautious general, like McClellan. So we're going to put him in Cairo to command that big stack there. Oops. And then we also get Curtis, who replaces Lyon, who historically died at the Battle of Wilson's Creek. So we'll place him in Springfield. And you'll see, we compare their stats. The Union is really losing a good general in Lyon and not gaining anything of note with Curtis, but that's the way the early war is for the Union. Confederates get, for their leadership phase, they get Albert Sidney Johnston. We're going to put him in Nashville to command this 3 SPs here, the force that's going to be going into Bowling Green eventually. And they get Hardee, who we're going to put under Polk for now. We're going to give him 1 SP. We're going to go head out east because the Confederates also get a 1-star Longstreet and Stewart. Okay, here out east, we're going to be doing some ahistorical, I guess you could say, leadership placement. So in the leadership phase, you're allowed to move, I think it's 2-star and 3-star generals for free. So we're going to move Beauregard out of the Army of Northern Virginia, well, what will become the Army of Northern Virginia. And we're going to move him to Strasburg, give him independent command in the Valley because we don't have access to Jackson yet in 1861. And, you know, historically he did get moved out west, but we don't have enough SPs for him in an independent command to give him out there quite yet. So he'll be in the Valley. His command is now going to be under the command of Longstreet, under Johnston, Joseph E. Johnston, that is. And we're going to reduce Longstreet's command from a 3 to a 2 so that Stewart can command 1 SP of his own, because cavalry can only, a cavalry general can command 1 SP max. So we're going to restack everybody. Having Stewart in this army with Johnston lets them evade battle better. If you look on the interception and avoid battle, having a cavalry unit makes the interception and void battle +2 DRM. So that's the leader management phase, and now we go into the action phase, and we're right back into the thick of things. So again, we have 3 action cycles to go. We're going to roll for the first action cycle. So Union initiative and a dice differential of 3. So I think the first thing the Union are going to do is move Burnside with an ocean transport down the North Carolina coast. So I'll get the camera set up so you can see it. All right, I think you can see a little bit better now. My understanding of the rules is we don't need to use an amphibious assault on Hatteras Inlet because it's undefended and it's an ocean port. So ocean port to ocean port, you can just do a transport. So Burnside is going to transport 1 SP down to Hatteras Inlet, and at the end of the turn, he should have that, or the end of the turn, he'll have that controlled because he only has 1 SP, so you can't control it inherently during the action cycle. So that's the first turn, or the first action completed by the Union. The second action is going to be, of course, McClellan is going to entrench because that's what he does best. The third action is going to be moving this 1 SP from Parkersburg. 1, 2, they have each SP has an inherent general with 3 movement factor or movement points. So he'll move 1, 2, and attack Charleston. There is a 0 column for the militia, but they don't get any defense bonuses because there's no entrenchment and they're not attacking across the river or anything. So the best they can do is break a tie. So with 1 SP, we're going to see if the Union can get a good enough result to win this battle. Yep, that'll do it. A 6 on the 1 column destroys 1 SP, but there's no SP to destroy. The Union SP will move into Charleston, and now at the end of the turn, that SP will be able to control Charleston, and the Union will have control over West Virginia. So the West Virginia militia goes back to the border state holding box, and that's the first action cycle of the turn 2 for the Union. Okay, the Confederates now have their 3 action points to spend. They don't have a useful special action card, so they can't really construct a fort anywhere, which is unfortunate. We'd like to build one on the Mississippi, probably in Vicksburg or Memphis. So we kind of just have to look in Northern Virginia. So we do have Beauregard with 2 SPs here in Strasburg, and it's tempting to try to attack Harper's Ferry. Patterson is a 0, Beauregard's a 1. If we had an East special action card to give us that +2 DRM, we probably would try it, but as it stands, I don't think it's worth it. It might be interesting to send Stewart on a raid to maybe Frederick, but cutting off that train route really doesn't do much for the Confederates at the moment, other than giving another plume in Jeb Stuart's hat. So I think we're going to pass on everything on the Eastern Theater. We want to keep this SP here in Richmond, I think, at least until we can get a fort set up in there. So I think let's check out the West and the Trans-Mississippi to see if we can spend any of our action points over there. I don't know why, but for me, the Trans-Mississippi in the West is just so interesting for the Civil War. I don't know why. It's just one of those things, kind of inexplicable. Maybe because it's lesser known and I'm edgy like that or something, but either way. So Price over here in Fayetteville, I think we're going to move him up 2 hexes, 1, 2, to this hex. You probably can't see it, but this is where P Ridge historically happened, this hex here. So he's going to move his 2 SPs here. That's using 2 movement points, and with his last 2 movement points, he is going to entrench. So that's 1 action by the Confederates. I'm really wondering if we should invade Kentucky now. I don't think so, because that will allow the Union SPs to come down through Kentucky to the east. Knoxville's still pretty undefended, except by a Tennessee militia. So I don't think we're going to invade Kentucky yet. It'd be nice to get next turn's SPs to reinforce Johnston and Polk. So we're going to hold off on that. I think all we're going to do is entrench some people. So like I said, we're going to entrench the Tennessee militia over here in Knoxville for our second action. And for our third action, we're actually going to move this SP from New Bern down here to Beaufort to protect the Confederate blockade runner port, because Burnside next turn, once he has control of this, can take a ocean or river transport and just take the port without having to fight. So at least if we have an SP there, he'll be able to contest the landing, and Burnside will have to spend his naval special action card that allows him, if it will get in focus, allows an amphibious invasion. So I think that's all we're going to do for the Confederates, which means we're back to die roll for our second action phase. Dice differential is 4, so this is interesting with the Confederate initiative. So on a dice differential of 4 or 5, the Union has this condition that's quote unquote on to Richmond. So what the on to Richmond requirement means is that the Union player must use at least 1 action point to activate a force to attack or take control of a hex in Virginia containing a resource hex or Confederate SP or fort. And if he doesn't, he has to sacrifice 1 action point and remove an SP from the map. So it doesn't count for West Virginia. It only counts for the Valley and Northern Virginia, or I guess even down here on the peninsula. But we have to make an advance towards Richmond. And it's going to be hard because McClellan, obviously, is a cautious general with an attack rating of 0. So he's going to have to spend 2 action points to move within Johnston's zone of influence. So it might be better to use Patterson to attack Beauregard and Strasburg. But I'm getting ahead of myself because first the Confederates have their 4 actions to use. Now, I kind of want to move Johnston out of Manassas Junction. However, maybe move him back to Fredericksburg. However, this rail line from Manassas Junction out to Front Royal and Strasburg and down into the valley, I don't want that to be in Union control, because then that will open the flank of Beauregard out here in the valley. So we're going to keep Johnston there for now. The rest of the eastern seaboard looks okay, but I think we are going to spend 1 action point to entrench the Confederate garrison in Beaufort. Sorry, I realized you couldn't see that. So we're going to use 1 action point to entrench this SP down here in Beaufort, kind of hemming in Burnside. And actually I know we have 3 actions remaining for the Confederates, but they would have really liked to have gone second so that they could react to the Confederate or to the Union movements. However, it's just not the case, and there's nothing else we can do in the West. Albert Sidney Johnston is in Nashville still, Polk is still in Union City, and Price is on the Missouri border threatening Springfield. I really want to attack Curtis in Springfield with Price, but it's just not really worth it. We do have a trans-Mississippi. You know what? It is worth it it could be interesting if Price wins. So let's head out to and when I say west, I mean way west, trans-Mississippi. So Price is going to move his 2 SPs here and attack Curtis's 2 SPs in Springfield. Now, it's probably going to be a disaster. but we really want those extra points we get for capturing Springfield. So we're in the 2 column for both, and the Confederates are going to spend their Trans-Mississippi Special Action card to get the +2 Special Action card DRM. The Union have their +2 entrenchment, so even DRMs, the Confederates just need a higher roll, basically, because the generals are both +1 in their respective ratings. Ooh, that's going to be a tie. So let's make sure. So we have +1, +3, +1, +3. So we're both at 4 on the 1 column. And in the case of a tie, basically, so the Price retreats to the hex he attacked from, but because he's not in full supply, he's only in line of communication supply to Fayetteville, he gets a demoralized marker. Curtis retains control of Springfield, but nobody loses an SP. So that's the battle out there, the second battle of Springfield, or Wilson's Creek, whatever we're going to call it, completed. And now that's going to be the Confederate turn completed, because we don't have anywhere else to spend our action points. So back up here in Northern Virginia, the Union have to spend at least they have to make an attack on a resource hex. So McClellan, even though he's getting hounded by Lincoln to attack Johnston, he's going to go and telegraph Patterson to make an attack up the valley. So Patterson's going to move his 4 SPs from Harper's Ferry to Winchester, and then from Winchester up the valley to Strasburg to attack Beauregard's 2 SPs plus the Virginia militia, which doesn't really do anything for this battle. So Patterson has the numerical advantage, but Beauregard has a command, and he's entrenched. So the Union do not have a East or any special action card, so they don't get any DRM for that. So it's a +0 DRM for the Union, +3 DRM for the Confederates. So that's, well, Patterson, what are you going to do? So Patterson with a 4 rolled a 2, so he only gets an asterisk. Beauregard with a +3 and a 4 roll is a 7 on a 2 is 1 SP loss and a diamond. So Patterson goes down to 3 SPs, becomes demoralized, and retreats to Winchester. Oops. Beauregard stands strong in the Battle of Strasburg. But Patterson fulfills the on Richmond requirement because he attacked a resource hex in Virginia, sort of absolving McClellan from having to do anything. The Union still have 3 activations, however. So what we're going to do, I think, is move these 2 SPs. 1, the mountain is a +1 movement factor, so we're only going to make it to here. But hopefully we'll be able to threaten Warm Springs and Stanton eventually with its, I think it only has 1 SP. So let's see if we can't get them in an attack in the next action cycle maybe. So the Union have 2 SPs remaining. Or sorry, 2 actions remaining. And 2 actions are perfect for what we have to do out here in the Trans-Mississippi. So we're going to move this 1 action, or 1 SP, 2 hexes up to Lexington. At the end of the turn, we'll be able to take back control of that town. And from Ironton, we're going to move this 1 SP down to Greenville. And at the end of the turn, we'll be able to get control of that. So that's the second action cycle complete. And now we will move into the next action cycle. So with the second action cycle completed, we're going to roll for the third action cycle. So it's going to be Union Initiative with a dice differential of 2. And I'm not sure what the Union have to do still. Well, Patterson's going to retreat, that's for sure. He's going back to Harper's Ferry. And with their first action. Second action, these 2 SPs are going to try attacking Stanton. So it's 2 SPs versus 1 SP. Oops. Neither side has a special action card. So it's just +2 on the die roll for the Confederates for the entrenchments. That's a pretty bad roll for everybody. So a 2 on the 2 column is just a diamond. A 3 on the 1 column is a diamond. So it's a tie, which means the attacker retreats to the hex that he attacked from, and he is not in full supply, so he becomes demoralized. And that's going to be the Union action cycle completed. And now the Confederates get 2 actions for the third action cycle. And it is tempting to take Beauregard down the valley and attack Harper's Ferry with, how many? Patterson has 3. Beauregard has 2. I think if we had an East special action card to give us the DRM, we would do it. So all we're going to do, I believe, is move Price back to Fayetteville out in the Trans-Mississippi. So as I mentioned, just to ensure that Price gets his demoralized marker lifted, he's just going back to Fayetteville to be in full supply. And everything else looks fine and dandy for the Confederates, so that's going to be the end of turn 2. Moving right along. So at the end of the turn, we check out the control segment. This 1 SP in Lexington takes away that Confederate control marker. This 1 XP in Greenville takes away this Confederate control marker. This SP in Charleston creates Union control in Charleston, which flips all of these to, well, the border state control is now Union. So if you can kind of see it up here, border state control status, West Virginia now flips to Union control. You can kind of see that. You gotta take my word for it. And we, like I already did, we pick up all the US control markers, and Union victory points go up by 1 because we have control of Charleston now, which is a victory point objective hex. The Confederates lose a resource BP, so they're down to 96. And now we do the end turn rally segment. So anybody that's in full supply, there's a couple of conditions, but basically Patterson, because he's in Harper's Ferry, which is in full supply connected to the Northern Supply Network, he removes his demoralized token. This unit does not, because it is not in full supply in a Union resource or objective hex, basically. So they're still demoralized. They're going to have to retreat up to Grafton probably in order to become remoralized, or whatever you want to call it. And of course, Price becomes undemoralized. And we check for automatic victory, but I can tell you there's not an automatic victory right now. And the only thing that changes is the North Atlantic blockade for on the status track goes down to 1 because Burnside is controlling Hatteras Inlet. And that's the end of turn 2. That was pretty quick. Only the Battle of Strasburg, battle over here in Springfield, Turn 3 will definitely be a lot more fireworks because the Confederates, Albert Sidney Johnston and Polk, will be invading Kentucky. I can tell you right now. And who knows, maybe McClellan will get another on to Richmond and he'll have to do something out there in Northern Virginia. But either way, I hope you join us in the next turn to see how that unfolds. It's going to be the last turn in the scenario, then we're going to be checking for who wins. So should be an interesting conclusion to the first scenario of the U.S. Civil War. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.